Mars in Scorpio. This placement will correlate to a soul that desires to penetrate and understand the mystery of itself. Mars in Scorpio will produce an extremely intense energy system that is inverted from within itself. The inversion of this energy is used by the soul to consciously focus on the nature of its desires, the nature of its motivations and intentions that are reflected in those desires, and the psychology that those desires, motivations, and intentions produce. So Mars in Scorpio, anything in Scorpio seems to be very intense life for this reason here, that right here in the beginning he says to penetrate and understand the mystery of itself. Anyone that desires to do that will be what's the word, extricated. It's not extricated, it's something like that, will be basically deserted by their fellow mankind. They have to, at least in the greater majority. And there could be transformations in the life. You've heard that, changes in the life, forced change. Things will happen that will cause them to examine themselves and others very deeply. On a more, or less, I should say, a more surface level, you think this person might just be a psychologist or something, because not everyone who's interested in this stuff goes super deep. And I have known a few Mars and Scorpio people in my life, so we'll get into that as well. The soul's intention is to understand the nature of its emotional dynamics and the fears that emanate from those emotional dynamics. To understand the nature of its anger and rage, to understand the nature of personal power and proper and improper use of such power, to understand the right use of will at an egocentric and soul level, to understand how the misuse of will is linked to manipulating others in order for the Mars and Scorpio person's desires to be met. So lots of stuff here. To understand its own emotional dynamics and fears. This is another one that, unfortunately, I think many people who have Mars and Scorpio will ignore their fears and their emotional dynamics. They will not understand the nature of their anger and rage and where it's coming from. A couple people I know have Mars and Scorpio that I've met in the psychological areas of life, we should say, or in the psychiatric wards, both real and what's the word? I can't think right now exactly what I'm saying. But like real psychiatric wards, and then just different places in life where those people would exist, and they're not fully being told these deeper reasons for their anger, for their emotional upsets, etc. And I'm not even sure what the reasons are. I just know that they're not really going deep to what he's saying here, like in this sense, to understand all this. Especially like the misuse of manipulating others in order for the Mars and Scorpio person's desires to be met. That's not being met either, or not being faced either with a lot of people, because of course they want to they want to manipulate others. They want to get their desires met. They want to have. I can tell stories about this. Just a quick. I gave you a quick story. Someone I worked with. I think she had Venus in Scorpio and South Node in the 8th, and this person was literally given. She was given 2 months paid leave for psychological reasons. Never actually dealing with the real reasons. I'm not going to get into the real reasons because I know what they are, and they do have to do with manipulating others. And this is what this person's doing, and they're getting away with it. To understand the nature of its personal limitations relative to what is and is not possible. Same thing. People's people are being taken advantage of their dreams. Not being, not coming to terms with what is and what is not possible. The reasons and role of inner and outer confrontation, and to understand the nature of sexual energy and the right use of such energy. Same thing there. People misunderstanding the nature of sexual energy. I've got into this with past videos. This author believes that the exchange of sexual energies, specifically the fluids that are exchanged through sexual intercourse, and what that does to attachments and to soul attachments and things like that, and karmic exchange. This is not believed to be true. More likely than not, this is probably not understood or believed to be true by these people. But it's not just Mars and Scorpio people. It's just people in general. But of course, there is the other extreme where people believe in it too much, and then take it much further than what it really is. Within this, the Mars in Scorpio reflects a soul that desires to do a tremendous amount of personal work on itself. And that's what I was talking about earlier. This is not an easy, is usually, for the spiritual soul, this is not an easy life. In the sense of evolving beyond and metamorphosing the nature of all its fixed patterns of behaviors and compulsions of all kinds. In this way, the soul actualizes its karmic and evolutionary intentions. This is the Scorpio path to change its fixed patterns of behavior and compulsions. I actually think that I have many fixed patterns of behavior and compulsions that here's the thing, it's confusing like this, that I probably won't give up. Because whereas personally it may not be helping me, ideologically and philosophically, I may feel like they are right, righteous, correct, moral, etc. But personally, they are not helping me. So it gets confusing like that. If you have you feel like you're on some kind of special mission to help people or to do something. I'm not even sure. The whole thing is very confusing. Sexually speaking, Mars in Scorpio desires to use the intensity of its sexual energy as a vehicle to unite its ego with its soul, as well as uniting itself with the ego and soul of another. This is a very more higher octave of Scorpio, I would say. The intention is to merge both ways the limitations of the ego are more metamorphosed through merging with the soul and through the extension to the divine. Mars in Scorpio will use sexual energy as a vehicle of emotional and psychic renewal and as an outlet of the buildup of deep, intense, and compressed emotional energy. Karmically, Mars in Scorpio desires to learn the value of emotional, sexual commitment versus following every compulsive attraction. Within this, Mars in Scorpio desires to learn about its sexual compulsions, its attraction to sexual taboos, the nature of sexual possession, and the jealousy that follows. The nature of its projected sexual fears linked with a partner's potential infidelities, and the nature of its sexual desires that are linked with the archetype of the dark arrows. If you're following society, in some ways, Scorpio is learning this the hard way by having many, many, many sexual partners and dealing with all the emotions and the emotional traumas that come up through all of that, not understanding any of this. That's what I mean by that. And then eventually coming to this conclusion, perhaps later in life, if they even do. I even hear in, growing up in certain male circles, and male influencers, etc., that the thought process is to get it over with, the experience of many, many, many sexual partners, to learn certain things, etc. And I'm not saying that can't be valuable to some people. It certainly is not necessary, what they are teaching is that it is a necessary experience, which that is not the case at all. And then in certain female circles, I've heard women teaching, and men teach this as well, is this idea of having lots and lots and lots of contacts, lots of partners, and keeping them around, etc., kind of in a control system, so that you don't ever have to experience these Scorpio type emotions, because you always have someone to replace them. And this is actually happening. There are many, many, many people being misled in this way, in my opinion. And they are suffering emotionally, and they don't know why. Because in the short term, it is a short-term fix, but in the long term, it is doing nothing for the soul, but causing more traumatic karma. So, thanks for watching, and have a great day.